She came home wearing a different lipstick than the one she left with. That was the first thing I noticed. Not the fake smile, not the suitcase missing its usual airport tag, not even the scent of someone else's cologne clinging to her scarf. No, it was the lipstick. Coral peach instead of plum red. I know because I bought the red one for her birthday. She wore it every time she traveled. Said it made her feel powerful. I asked her, calmly, what happened to the red. She said it smudged on the flight, and she tossed it. We both knew that was a lie. I didn't say anything. Just nodded. The kind of nod that says, I see you. She didn't flinch. She's good at pretending. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because of her lies. Not because of the faint hotel shampoo smell lingering in her hair. But because I realized something else. I had nothing left to ask her. Not how was the trip. Not did you land safely. Not even who is he. Because I already knew. Not his name. Not his face. But his shadow had moved into our home 2 weeks before she even left. The dishes she stopped rinsing. The cold dinners reheated with microwave laziness. The way she locked her phone in focus mode the moment she stepped in the door. The silence that had weight. But you want to know the most humiliating part? I helped her pack. I folded the exact black dress she wore in the hotel photo I would find later. I zipped up the carry-on that held the lingerie I thought was for us. I even drove her to the airport like a clueless chauffeur, gave her a kiss on the forehead, and said, don't work too hard. She didn't work at all. 3 nights later, I found the receipt. Not on her phone, not in her purse, but in the printer tray in our shared office. She must have forgotten to shred it. Or maybe she didn't care if I found it. Ocean Pines Resort, room 114. 2 guests. Dinner for 2 at 7:30 p.m. Couples massage. Paid in cash. Cash. Like I wouldn't notice that the savings account was $900 lighter. I sat there for almost an hour just staring at it. Printer ink still warm. A part of me wanted to wake her up right then and scream. But I didn't. Instead, I placed the receipt on her pillow. And beside it, my wedding ring. Not inside the box. Not wrapped in tissue. Just cold, bare metal on bare white cotton. She came home and found it the next evening. I was standing in the kitchen drinking stale wine, waiting for her to say something, anything. She looked at the receipt. She looked at the ring. And then she said, with a shrug that could have crushed 1,000 vows, you weren't supposed to see that. No apology. No guilt. Not even panic. Just that. Like I'd interrupted her vacation plans by having a backbone. I didn't throw the wine glass. I didn't break anything. I just picked up the ring, walked over to her, and tossed it underhand. Not hard. Not soft. Just enough for it to bounce off her shoulder and hit the hardwood with a sound I'll never forget. And then I left. Where did I go? That's where this story really begins. She forgot to disconnect her phone from the Bluetooth. That's how I heard it. I wasn't looking for it. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't plotting anything. I just started the car to get ice cream. It was a simple Sunday night. My chest was still tight from the moment I threw the ring and walked out. But I hadn't gone far. I ended up sleeping in the back seat of our car, curled up like a coward, 3 blocks away from the house I no longer wanted to walk into. I don't even like pistachio. But I craved something that wasn't bitter or heavy or soaked in silence. The moment I turned the key, her voice filled the cabin. Not talking to me. Not even talking. She was laughing. At first, I thought it was some podcast she forgot to close. But then came the second voice. Male, smug, chewing his words like gum. You think he suspected anything? Her voice again, a little smugger this time. Judson? No. That man couldn't spot a lie if it danced naked in front of him wearing a name tag. I didn't even feel it at first. Just sat there, ice cold, keys halfway turned in the ignition. The call must have been recent, still cached in the car's memory. I hit the recent audio button, and the recording played again. Full conversation. 11 minutes. 11 minutes of 2 people, my wife and someone with a voice like gravel and alcohol, mocking me. He still folds my laundry. I don't even ask. That's adorable. How do you keep a straight face? Practice. The way she said it. Practice. Like loving me was a job she had gotten tired of faking. Like I was the sitcom husband people laugh at in reruns. And all I could think about was, she said that in our car. The car I bought. The one we took to our honeymoon cabin. The one she made me install seat warmers in because her circulation was bad. That same car. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't even get the damn ice cream. I just sat there until my phone buzzed. It was a message from her. No name, just the initials, M. That's what she changed it to after the fight. We need to talk. When can you come home? No punctuation. No warmth. As if I was the one who owed her an explanation. I didn't answer. I just stared at the screen until it went black. And then I made a decision I didn't think I was capable of. Not revenge. Not rage. Something quieter. Colder. More permanent. I went home. Not to talk. To listen. Because what I heard next behind our bathroom door confirmed everything. The hotel wasn't the full story. When I walked back into the house that night, it didn't feel like home. The air had changed. Not colder, just still. Like something had died in the walls, and no one dared mention it. I stepped into the hallway and saw the front lights still on, her shoes by the door, and one of her earrings on the floor like a breadcrumb from a trail I didn't want to follow. It wasn't mine anymore, this space. Not the hallway, not the couch we picked together, not even the stale bottle of wine she'd left uncorked on the counter. She wasn't downstairs, and I wasn't going to announce myself. My legs moved like they had their own orders, quiet, measured steps toward the master bedroom. The door was half closed, light bleeding out softly like a guilty secret. I could hear water running behind the wall. She was in the bathroom, maybe showering, maybe brushing her teeth with that fake smile in the mirror, maybe humming a tune she thought I'd never hear again. I stood there, not knocking, just listening, and then I noticed the nightstand drawer was slightly ajar. Hers. I had never opened it in 12 years. Not once. It was her space. A little private box of chapsticks, hair ties, receipts, tampons, maybe a journal I wasn't supposed to see. But that night, the rules were already broken. Everything sacred had already been stepped on. Why not this? So I opened it. At first, it was innocent. A worn-out hairbrush. An expired gift card. A gum wrapper. But tucked beneath a folded scarf, hidden like something fossilized, was a letter. No envelope. No return address. Just a single page, creased, handled many times. It was handwritten. In tight, neat print. It started with, "I wish you'd just leave him, but I know you won't. So this weekend will be the last." I read it twice before realizing my hands were trembling so badly I could barely hold it. It wasn't the words that crushed me. It was the way it was written. Not like a man begging for love, but like someone exhausted, tired of the lies. Someone who had clearly been a part of this longer than I'd ever imagined. The weekend. This weekend. That was the business trip. There were more lines. Details. Things I couldn't unread. "I hate the way he calls you babe, like you're still his. You say you're scared of breaking his heart. I think you just like having both of us. When you cried last month and said you didn't deserve either of us, you were finally right." The words blurred. I felt a pressure in my ears, like being underwater, my body too slow to react. Rage didn't come. Not sadness either. Just disbelief. Like reading a horror novel that took place inside your own home. I heard the water shut off. Her footsteps on tile. Then the door creaked open, and Mallory stepped into the room in a robe, towel on her head, toothbrush in one hand, humming to herself. She didn't see me at first, until I closed the drawer. Slowly, loudly, her eyes darted up. "Judson?" she said, startled. "What are you?" I didn't hear. I held up the letter. Said nothing. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. I asked, very quietly, "Who is he?" Her face froze. Then, the worst expression I've ever seen on a human being crossed her face. Relief. Not guilt. Not fear. Not shame. Relief. As if she was glad the pretending was finally over. That's when I knew this wasn't her first time. And it wasn't going to be her last either. She sat down on the bed, didn't bother to reach for the letter, didn't deny a single word. "I was going to tell you," she said softly, looking anywhere but at me. Eventually, I didn't answer. I walked out again, but not before saying something I never thought would come out of my mouth. "You've got 48 hours to be gone. I'm not going to yell. I'm not going to fight you for the house. I just want you out." She blinked. "You're kicking me out." And I said, "No, I'm just letting you go, finally." But I lied. I wasn't going to let her go. Not until I found out who the letter was from. Because what she didn't know, she left the return stub of the hotel receipt behind. And that was all I needed. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the edge of the bed long after she went upstairs to pack. I heard drawers open, zippers rasp, hangers scrape. She moved around like a guest in a hotel room, efficient, distant, expressionless. And I sat there, in the dark, holding a receipt with his name on it. I didn't recognize it at first. The print was small, barely legible. It was in the billing section, paid by S. Halbert. That name meant nothing to me. Not at first. But I wasn't about to let that stop me. I wasn't some private investigator or seasoned liar like Mallory. I was just a man who had been made to look like a fool, and now I needed clarity more than revenge. Or at least that's what I told myself. I Googled him. Just that name. No quotes. No tricks. Just a single search bar and a growing knot in my gut. The results were surprisingly specific. Not a coworker. Not some slick executive in her firm. Not a client from the marketing agency. No, he was a high school teacher. Taught creative writing in a neighboring county. Volunteer with the community theater. Took groups of students to poetry slams and youth workshops. There were photos, public ones, showing him on a folding chair in a gymnasium, smiling with teenagers holding up handmade zines. I stared at the screen, stunned. This was the man she risked everything for? A teacher? Someone who probably lived paycheck to paycheck, who wore wrinkled corduroy and posted quotes from Rilke on his Facebook wall. It didn't make sense. Mallory was a shark. Polished heels, sharp angles, money-chasing meetings, hotel lobbies, and brand deals. Her world was corporate power plays and backlit presentation decks, and this man belonged to an entirely different orbit. And yet, there was something in his eyes. In every photo, he looked like someone who saw people deeply, like he listened. I hated him for that. I hated how he looked like he could understand a woman like Mallory better than I ever did. I sat there in that growing silence until my phone buzzed. It was her. Just one message. I'm leaving in the morning. Don't be here. I didn't respond. Instead, I printed his faculty profile. I read every word. He had a dog. He liked cycling. He published a small poetry collection in 2018 through some obscure press in Vermont. I ordered the book. Yeah, I actually paid money for the book written by the man who stole my wife. What does that say about me? Desperation? Obsession? Some pitiful need to understand the thing that shattered me? Maybe all of it. But I wasn't done. The next day, I drove to his school. I didn't plan to talk to him. I didn't even know what I wanted. I told myself I'd just sit in the parking lot and watch. Maybe just prove he was real. That he wasn't some phantom my wife invented to justify her midlife crisis. But when I saw him walk out the back entrance, long coat, coffee in one hand, tote bag over his shoulder, I froze. He looked happy. Not smug. Not arrogant. Just fulfilled. Like he'd just spent the day doing something meaningful. Like he went home to peace and didn't have to lie about where he'd been. And that broke something in me I didn't even know was still intact. Because in that moment, I realized something worse than being cheated on. She never looked that happy with me. Not once. And that's when I realized. It wasn't just the affair. It was that she had emotionally left me long before she physically did. And maybe this man didn't steal her. Maybe she offered herself to him, fully, because I was already gone in her eyes. Still, that didn't excuse it. That didn't make it right. And it damn sure didn't prepare me for what I found when I followed him home and saw who else was living in that house. I didn't mean to follow him. I swear I didn't. It started as an impulse, a broken man in a dusty car tailing a stranger down side streets, telling himself he was just trying to understand. I thought if I saw where he lived, maybe it would answer something. Maybe I could see what she saw in him. Maybe I'd get closure. Instead, I got something worse. He lived in a modest house on a corner lot. Faded blue shutters, a cracked driveway, overgrown lavender bushes flopping over the sidewalk. It wasn't impressive. It wasn't polished. But it looked lived in. Honest. Real. I parked across the street and watched him pull into his driveway, get out, and walk toward the front door with a rhythm that suggested he had nowhere to be but there. Then the door opened, and everything in me collapsed. Because the person who greeted him, barefoot, hair pulled into a loose ponytail, wearing a paint-smeared hoodie, was someone I knew. Sarah. Not just someone I knew. My sister's best friend growing up. The one who used to come over after school and draw chalk murals on our sidewalk. The one who once made me a birthday card out of pasta shells and glitter. The one who used to braid Mallory's hair before double dates back in college. I hadn't seen her in years. She'd disappeared after graduation. Moved away. Got into some art residency, I think. Mallory used to say, she's too emotional to survive real life. But there she was, laughing, hugging him, kissing him on the cheek. And then, she turned and looked straight at my car. I don't know how. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe she recognized the shape of the old Honda from a lifetime ago. Or maybe my presence just broke the peace like a ripple across a still pond. But our eyes met, and in that second, I knew. She knew everything. And worse, she had known for a long time. I ducked. Pathetic, right? A grown man crouching in his own car like a coward while a woman from his past, a woman who once baked him cookies and called him Jedi, watched him unravel. I don't know how long I stayed there. Long enough for my legs to cramp. Long enough for the porch light to turn on. Long enough for my self-respect to evaporate like mist on a windshield. When I finally pulled away, my mind was racing. Sarah. Why her? What did she have to do with Mallory's affair? The connection didn't make sense. Not yet. But I couldn't shake the image of her standing in that doorway like a witness. Not an accomplice. Not a victim. A witness. Someone who had seen the whole train wreck unfolding and said nothing. That night, I pulled out an old shoebox from the top shelf of the hallway closet. The one Mallory never touched. The one filled with old photos, cards, forgotten birthday letters. I needed to remember. I needed context. There was a photo, taken in 2011. 4th of July. Me, Mallory, Sarah, and him. Same guy. No beard yet. A little younger, but unmistakable. They knew each other. They had known each other all along. And suddenly, all the years of their chance reconnecting didn't look so accidental. That poetry reading Mallory dragged me to 2 summers ago. He was there. She said she didn't remember him. She laughed when I asked, "You think I remember every guy I went to school with?" Liar. She remembered. Because he was never just a guy. He was the guy. And now I understood what the letter meant. You don't deserve either of us. Because this wasn't a spontaneous betrayal. It was planned. They planted this like a seed. Watered it in silence. Let it grow underneath my feet while I mowed the lawn and paid the bills and cleaned her damn travel mugs. Mallory and Sarah. Together. She once called Sarah too impulsive, too dramatic, too selfish to be trusted. That wasn't judgment. That was projection. And now I had to face the fact that the woman I married and the girl I used to think of as family had orchestrated a betrayal so quiet, so cruel, that I had slept next to it for years. But I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. Because something deeper had begun to grow inside me. Not rage. Not sadness. Something far more dangerous. Strategy. I didn't sleep that night. Again. But it wasn't grief keeping me awake this time. Not the kind that coils around your chest and makes it hard to breathe. No, this time it was something colder. Sharper. Like my brain had finally stopped crying and started working. Connecting dots. Remembering little things that used to slip past me. The poetry book. The art shows she said she was helping with on weekends. The way she used to delete texts in real time, claiming she just hated digital clutter. She was never messy. But now that I was finally paying attention, I started to see the cracks she'd hidden so well. It started when I remembered the shared Dropbox account we created back when we used to send each other work files and budget spreadsheets. I hadn't touched it in over a year. Mallory used to say she moved everything to her private cloud, but she never officially deleted the shared folder. And thank God she didn't. Because when I logged in and saw her personal_backups_2019 folder still sitting there, unhidden, unencrypted, my hands started to sweat. I clicked. At first, it was boring. Receipts, old Word docs, a half-written resignation letter from her old job. But then I found a subfolder with no label. Just a single dot. Hidden in plain sight. And inside that folder, there were 36 video files. All with random names. Scrambled letters. No thumbnails. For a second, I thought maybe they were corrupted or old work webinars. But I clicked the first one and immediately wished I hadn't. It was her, sitting in a car, recording herself. No makeup, wind blowing her hair, eyes red from crying. At first I thought it was some kind of journal, a vlog, but then she spoke. Day 6. He asked me to lie again today. Said he needed more time. I'm so tired of being the one who carries the guilt. My stomach turned. Not because she looked sad, but because her sadness sounded practiced. She wasn't crying from remorse. She was documenting something. Something secret. Something structured. I watched 3 more. In one, she talked about Sarah. She says she understands, but she doesn't. She still thinks it's about love. It's never been about love. In another, she mentioned me by name. Judson's still clueless. Still folding towels like everything's normal. I hate how good he is. It makes me feel like a monster. I paused the video. I wanted to stop, but I couldn't. Because that line, "It's never been about love," kept ringing in my ears like an alarm. I opened the most recent file. It was shaky, filmed at night. She was walking down a street, whispering. Tomorrow I'm telling him the trip is work-related. He won't question it. He never does. The video cuts, then comes back. Now she's standing outside a door. A hotel room, I think. She turns the camera around. And it's him. Halbert, wearing a hotel robe, holding a glass of wine, looking directly at the camera like he knew this was being filmed. "You sure this is smart?" he asks her. She laughs. "He'll never find this." And the screen goes black. My hands were shaking. I couldn't feel my fingers. I sat there in my empty house, in the middle of the night, watching my wife record her betrayal like it was some twisted documentary. But it wasn't the affair that hit me hardest. It was the knowledge that she wanted to keep it. Not just live it. Not just experience it. Preserve it. Like it was worth remembering. Like it was art. That's when it hit me. She wasn't planning to stay with him. She wasn't planning to stay with me either. She was documenting the in-between. Because Mallory never made decisions based on people. She made them based on power. And this, all of this, was her exit strategy. The videos were insurance. Evidence. And I was just another scene in her narrative. I should have stopped. I should have closed the laptop and walked away. But instead, I clicked on the final video, the one labeled "Do Not Open Until After." And what I saw in that one, that changed everything. The file took a few seconds to load. It wasn't just larger, it was different. Different tone, different framing. The timestamp was from 4 days before she left for the business trip. 4 days before the lie. Before the hotel. Before I saw him. Before all of it. The screen flickered once. Then her face appeared. No filter. No makeup. Just Mallory in her rawest form, sitting in the driver's seat of her car, parked somewhere I didn't recognize. The light outside her window was dim, golden, like early morning or just before dusk. She looked tired. Not in the usual way, not physically. This was deeper. Like her soul was frayed at the edges. She stared at the camera for a full 10 seconds before speaking. "If you're watching this, I guess I didn't go through with it." I froze. She didn't blink. She wasn't crying. Just speaking, like she'd rehearsed this 1,000 times in her head and finally hit record. I don't know how to say this without sounding cruel, so I won't try to sugarcoat it. I married Judson because he made me feel safe. I stayed with Judson because he made everything work. Bills, groceries, calendars. God, that man loves calendars. She half smiled. I didn't. But I haven't loved him in years. Maybe ever. I think I wanted to. I think I tried. But trying to love someone is like trying to breathe underwater. Eventually, you just drown quietly and stop moving. I felt the heat rising in my chest, but I didn't stop the video. Because I had to hear all of it. Sarah thinks I'm being reckless. She says I romanticize things too much. Maybe I do. Maybe I always have. But I can't stay with someone who thinks kindness is enough. Who thinks loyalty is the same thing as passion. She paused, looked away, took a breath. If I go through with this trip, if I don't come back, or if I come back different, I need a record of why I did it. Not to justify it. Not even to explain it. Just to mark it. To leave a scratch in the timeline. That's when she reached down and pulled something up into frame. A flash drive, labeled only with my name. In her handwriting. This is for him. All of it. The letters. The poems. The recordings. Everything I never had the courage to say out loud. If I disappear, I want him to know it wasn't about punishing him. It was about finding out who I was before I started building my life around a man who never really saw me. Her voice didn't tremble. Not once. And if I end up staying, if I come home and pretend nothing happened, then I'm the coward. Not him. The video ended there. No resolution. No next line. Just black screen and silence. And that silence? It gutted me. Because it wasn't just a confession. It was a farewell. But not the kind meant for death. Or even divorce. It was the kind of farewell you leave behind for someone who'll eventually realize they were always holding a ghost. I stared at the paused frame for a long time. I didn't know what I felt. Grief? Anger? Pity? I hated her for how she did it. For how clinical and premeditated it all was. For how she turned our marriage into a footnote in her own self-rediscovery saga. But part of me, and I hated this even more, part of me understood her. Because I had been fading too. I had stopped asking her how she was doing years ago. Stopped looking for signs. I mistook routine for stability. Silence for peace. Obedience for love. And now I was sitting alone in a house filled with her echoes, watching her say goodbye to a version of me that never asked her to stay. But here's the thing. She never gave me that flash drive. She never said any of this to my face. She chose secrecy over honesty. And that's something I couldn't let go, because it meant she still planned to keep control, even after the damage was done. So I made a decision. Not to confront her. Not to beg. Not to forgive. I was going to take the videos, all of them, and copy them onto her work laptop. The one she left behind. The one connected to her cloud. Because if she was going to turn our marriage into a performance, then the curtain was about to rise. And the audience was going to be hers. I didn't do it out of spite. That surprised me. By the time I sat at her work laptop, the same silver one she used for fake Zoom calls and carefully worded client lies, I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't shaking. I didn't feel vengeance flooding through my veins like in the movies. I just felt done. Not defeated. Done. I copied the entire folder onto her desktop. Every video. Every whisper. Every quiet confession meant for no one but herself, and possibly him. Then I renamed the folder. Mallory, in her own words. I didn't send an email. I didn't leave a dramatic note. I didn't slash her tires or change the locks. I simply shut the laptop, closed the door, and left it sitting on the coffee table, glowing softly like a mirror she couldn't avoid. When she returned the next evening to get the last of her things, I didn't even look up. I sat on the porch with a beer, barefoot, legs stretched out, watching the sun disappear behind the neighbor's trees like it had somewhere better to be. She paused in the doorway. I didn't say anything. She walked past me once, then again, then stopped. You watched them, she said finally. I took a sip. All of them. She nodded. No tears. No tantrum. Just that stiff, corporate composure she always hid behind when the walls cracked. I didn't think you'd understand. I laughed softly. Not cruelly. Not mockingly. Just tired. No, Mallory. You hoped I wouldn't. That was all. She stood there for a while longer. I didn't break the silence. Eventually she got in her car and drove off without looking back. And that was the last time I saw her. The next few weeks were hard in ways I didn't expect. The quiet wasn't comforting at first. It echoed. It pressed down. It reminded me of every breakfast we never shared, every smile I missed, every way we chose safety over truth. But day by day, the silence started to feel different. Not empty, open. I started walking again. Around the block. Through trails. Along streets I hadn't touched in years. I made small talk with strangers. I called my sister back. I even went to an open mic night, just to listen. No alcohol. No distractions. Just real people, saying real things. That's where I saw Sarah. She came up after the third reader and sat beside me without asking. You didn't burn anything down, she said, almost surprised. I thought about it. She smiled. You didn't deserve what she did. No, I said. But I let it happen. I stayed blind for too long. We didn't argue. We didn't pick sides. We just listened to the next poet, a kid no older than 17, read a piece about starting over after losing his mom. And something about that cracked me wide open. Because that's what I was doing. Starting over. Not out of revenge. Not to prove a point. But because I had finally stopped chasing someone who never planned to stay, and started listening to the voice I hadn't heard in years. My own. 2 months later, I found the flash drive. The physical one. Tucked inside a book she left behind. Not labeled this time. No name. Just slid between the pages of a novel we used to pretend we'd both read. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. Because whatever it said, I already knew how the story ended. Not with a broken man begging for closure. Not with an email chain of blame. But with a quiet evening, a cleared-out closet, a half-full fridge, and a porch view that reminded me. Healing doesn't always look loud. Sometimes it just looks like breathing again.